Welcome to IFOMT 2016. We made it. Fantastic. Great to see you. I've put Happy Independence Day here for our American colleagues, but it does have ramifications, so congratulations. It has ramifications for Scotland, it has ramifications for Brexit, so I thought it was fairly topical. But this conference is about being together, not about being apart, as we know from the welcome reception last night. So it's a real honour to welcome you all here to Glasgow. I'm Chris Mercer, I'm the chair of the conference, and our themes are about expanding horizons and looking at those horizons around the different aspects, whether it's scientifically, clinically, socially, culturally or ethically. I was talking to Emma on the way down this morning, and in the space of an hour and a half last night, I spoke to people from 19 different countries, which is just fantastic. And that's what IFOMT's about. So let's enjoy all of these things, let's enjoy each other's company, and let's carry on the theme from last night, which was friendly and welcoming and really buzzy. So let's keep that going through the week. My role here this morning, obviously to welcome you guys, but what I really want to say is thank you to all the team that have helped us get this far. So there's lots of people to thank, as in all these occasions. So we've been working with a fantastic company, MCI, and you'll see their staff around the conference centre. So we've been working with this team for 4 years, so thank you to all the team at MCI. And the team at the Glasgow City Marketing Bureau. Glasgow as a city has been fantastic in helping us to host IFOMT. They've been super welcoming. The host reception last night was a gift from the city, and they've also given us other gifts, which I'll talk about later. But they've been fantastically supportive and helped us put on such a fantastic event. The team here at the SECC, again, have been magnificent. They're super professional, and you'll see as the week goes on, they'll keep things running really smoothly. So thank you to them. Thank you also to Annalie and the IFOMT committee for their steering and nudging, bit of nagging along the way just to keep us on track, because I need that, and my wife will support that. So we've kept that going, and the team at the MACP Executive Committee. This is very much a team event. This is about everyone working together to get us all here for such a fantastic conference. And also the team at WCPT, Emma's team, and Tracy Berry. When we were setting the conference up, they were very kind in sharing their processes with us, sharing their paperwork. So this has been a learning experience for us, but it's been a whole team event. Obviously, our sponsors and exhibitors have been really supportive, so I'd really encourage you to have a look around the exhibition in the breaks. They're actually all really friendly. I went and met everyone this morning. None of them bite, and they're all desperate to have chats with you guys, so please go and say hello. But I'd also like to say thank you to you for turning up. I think I had the best night's sleep I've had in about 4 years last night, so thank you very much. And to the local organising committee, these are the committee who've helped really bring this event together. So from top left here, it's Claire Small, Anne Moore, Terry Smith, Karen Beaton, Chris Murphy, Helen Welsh, Linda Crocker, Laura Finucane, Mindy Cairns, and Kay Keir. So I'd just like to say thank you from me and from you. So thank you. And my team as well. So particularly the dog, who's had to put up with me sitting there in the middle of the night saying, what are we going to do about this, Sophie? And she just looks at me with big brown eyes. And so thank you to you guys. And hopefully they'll see less of this now and a bit more of this. These are not my trunks. These are not my budgie smugglers, but they were. Anyway. One of the things I'm proudest about for this conference is the legacy. And what we decided when we bid for the conference, and what we really were passionate about as an organising committee, was that there'd be a legacy from the conference, not just for the delegates who take away the scientific knowledge and the cultural enrichment, but also to leave something behind for Glasgow and for other people. So the Glasgow City Marketing Bureau gave us £10,000 worth of what we call subvention funding, which is a fund really for us to do with as we wished. But what we wanted to do was to support people who may struggle to get here, who had a long way to come, whose countries weren't maybe as well prepared to support them to come. So we're delighted to have supported these 3 delegates, and I've only met Sarab last night, so if the other 2 guys, if you want to come and find me, it'd be great to give you a hug and say welcome, but I'd like to welcome you particularly to the conference. The MACP has also supported members, again, with another £10,000 worth of bursaries to get people here, because it's such a great event and it's such a great environment to learn. So thank you again. The other legacy item we're doing is a spine check station. So tomorrow lunchtime and Wednesday lunchtime over in the Science Centre and at BBC Scotland, members of the conference, some of the delegates will be over there doing spine checks for the people of Glasgow. And again, it's just about promoting what we do as IFOMT, what we do as manual therapists, and also hopefully helping to leave a little message of health improvement for the people of Glasgow. But the best bit, I think, just because I'm a dad and I like this sort of stuff, is the poster competition. So last night, if you were at the Science Centre, you'll have seen some of these posters presented. So what we wanted to do was engage with local schools, and we asked local schools to produce posters that were based around the benefits of exercise. And the original intention was to have a £500 prize for sports equipment for the winning school. So Olivia from Bankhead Primary was the winner, and she takes away the biggest trophy in the middle. And you'll see her poster in a second. Hillingdon Primary, John Stevenson, and Davina Hyogyu were runners-up. But we were so impressed with the quality of the posters that we wanted to give prizes to the runners-up as well. So there's £500 of sports equipment for the winning school, but also £200 of sports equipment to those runners-up. And I'd just like to thank the speakers in advance, because instead of giving speakers gifts, what we chose to do was use the funds we would have used for speakers' gifts to go towards those runners-up prizes for the schools. And I think it'll be a fitting legacy for some of the work we've done here. So thank you, speakers. So this is one of the runners-up. It's just kind of conjuring up the joy of exercise. Some are very keen, multi-sport and talented. And this is Olivia's winning poster, which you'll see displayed on the entrance to the exhibition hall. She wrote to us and said, "There's a deliberate mistake. Can you spot it?" So, all of the other kids' posters will be displayed in the exhibition hall on the back curtain. So we had about 160 entries, which was fantastic. So, magnificent engagement from the schools, and that's something I'm really proud of from the conference's point of view. So take your time, go and have a look at the scientific posters, but go and have a look at these posters too, because they're really inspiring. So. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for turning up. I hope you have a fantastic week. Hope you meet some new friends and some old friends, and let's enjoy ourselves. I'd just like to introduce Mohammed Rahak, who's the Bailey of Glasgow. He's going to say a few words, and then we'll have Annalie, Basson, Emma Stokes, and Dr. Chris McCarthy, who will introduce themselves and say a few words. But for now, thank you very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the Clyde Auditorium at the Scottish Exhibition and Conference Centre. It is my great pleasure, on behalf of the Lord Provost and the people of Glasgow, to join you at your opening ceremony. I trust your conference will go well and you will make the most of your time here. As a city, we place great emphasis on making sure visitors from all over the world are well received. But it is Glaswegians, famed for their wit, wisdom, and friendly banter, which will make the city unique. Indeed, our city's popular slogan, "People make Glasgow," sums it up perfectly. So I'm confident you will enjoy your time here as much as we enjoy having you. Of course, you are here for business, and important business at that. But it would be remiss of me not to take this opportunity to tell you about my amazing hometown. If you're here for the first time, or even if you are familiar with our city, I hope you will get some time to explore. Glasgow is renowned as a city of culture and education, as well as a city with a thriving arts and music scene. We have an amazing list of free visitors attractions to explore and enjoy, including the Kelvin Grove Museum and Art Gallery, along with the Riverside Museum and People's Palace. Glasgow is also a shopper's paradise, with over 1,500 shops, making it the second largest retail centre in the UK outside of London. But if you are looking for some peace and quiet away from the city buzz, then our wonderful green space is also within an easy walk of the city centre. The word Glasgow means dear green place in Gaelic, and the city lives up to its name with over 90 parks and gardens. We have also a world-class education system, and Glasgow is a city that values this wonderful resource. We regularly host conferences, attracting delegates from across the globe like yourselves, sharing news and views about the latest developments in teaching and learning. Our three universities, the University of Glasgow, Glasgow Caledonian, and the University of Strathclyde, attract the very best talent from across the globe and are also leading and respected centres of research. These institutions have produced some of our most influential thinkers, including Adam Smith, Lord Kelvin, James Watt, and John Logie Baird. Glasgow is proud of its internationalist outlook, and we recognise that innovative and relevant higher education is fundamental to our country's success. Glasgow is also well known for hosting national and international events, particularly in sport. We were recently named the 5th top sporting city in the world by the prestigious 2016 Sports Business Ultimate Sports City Awards, and came top in the legacy category in reflection of its long-standing commitment to increasing participation and creating new sporting opportunities for our citizens. Building on Glasgow hosting the best ever Commonwealth Games in 2014, we will host the 2017 World Badminton Championships, and in 2018, we will host the inaugural 2018 European Championships. So hopefully we can see you again in Glasgow for one of these big sporting events, if not before. I hope you enjoy your time here and carry fond memories with you of Glasgow when you leave. Meanwhile, please enjoy this day and the remainder of your conference. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Annalie Basson, the President of IFOMT. Welcome to IFOMT 2016. It's such an honor to be here and to see such a wonderful turnout of people. We are indeed happy to be here. I would like to thank some of our honorary guests, or welcome some of our honorary guests, the Baillie of Glasgow, and then we have the privilege of having Emma Stokes, the President of WCPT, and Tracy Bury, the acting CEO of WCPT. We're also fortunate to have 3 of the past presidents of IFOMT here, Stanley Paris, Agneta Lando, and Michael Ritchie. It really is nice to welcome you as well. I would like to thank the MACP and Glasgow City for hosting this prestigious event. And then also a big thank you to the organising committee under the able leadership of Chris Mercer. We also have Mindy Cairns, the scientific chair, and I think you will all agree that they have put together a wonderful event for us. And the scientific program looks so exciting. I'm sure we're all going to enjoy that. I would like to introduce the Executive Committee and the Standards Committee of IFOMT to you so that you know their faces. We will be here throughout the conference, and we would welcome any conversations, or if there are any questions, please do so over the duration of the conference. So we have Duncan Reid, the Vice President of IFOMT, Eric Toombs, the Treasurer of IFOMT, and then Laura Finucane and Ken Olsen, Executive Committee members. And on this side, we have Alison Rushton. She's the chair of the Standards Committee, Renal Jordan, Laurie Maffey, Karen Beaton, Lenadine Levesque, and a new member, Leanne Bissett, John Langendun, Pierre Kerr, also new on the committee, and Jan Poel. So please come and talk to us if you want, if you need to, during the conference. Okay, thank you. So IFOMT is the leader, the global leader in OMT excellence. We were first established in 1974. And we were the first subgroup of WCPT and remained the only subgroup up till 1992. And since its inception, one of the most important things for IFOMT was to have educational standards for manual therapists. At the moment, we have 22 member organizations, all with their own educational postgraduate educational programs in OMT. We also have 11 registered interest groups working towards becoming full members. We promote excellence in OMT, and we do this in a number of ways. Firstly, we have the educational standards. And in 2007, we started with the process of international monitoring so that we can ensure that our member organizations comply with the standards set by IFOMT. We also try and assist development of educational programs in our registered interest groups. And then last but not least, we have conferences such as these, which is an excellent platform to disseminate research knowledge, but also a wonderful opportunity to network with friends and colleagues from around the globe. And of course, don't forget the social events. You must enjoy socializing with all your friends. For those of you who's never been to an IFOMT conference, prepare yourself for the ride of a lifetime. So I would like to introduce to you our member organizations, and I thought it would be nice if we can sort of see how many delegates we have from the different member organizations. So first we have Austria. Who's here from Austria? Okay. Then we have Australia. Let's hear it for Australia. I know there are a number of you. Oh, okay, up there. You can lift your voices a little bit. Belgium. Yes. Canada. Oh, okay, a good turnout from Canada. That's nice. We have Denmark. Oh, just a couple. Finland. Oh, good. Germany. Good turnout from Germany. Greece. Yeah. Hong Kong. Wow. Ireland. Yes. There should be a good couple from Ireland, I think. Italy. Good. And Japan? The Netherlands? Good. New Zealand? That's Norway? Oh, good. Portugal? Nice. South Africa, that's my home country, so I know there are some. Spain? Sweden? Oh, good. Switzerland? Oh. The United Kingdom? You should be the most, I think. And then last but not least, the United States. Oh, good. And our registered interest groups are Australia, Chile, Colombia. I know we have one from Colombia. France. Hungary. Not here. Iceland. Good. Korea. Yes. Whoa. Poland. And Slovenia. And, oh, good. And then Turkey. And we have other participants from across the globe. I know we have some from the Middle East, from Russia, and as you've seen, from Nepal. So welcome to everybody and enjoy the conference.
Good morning. Thank you to the MACP and to IFOMT for the invitation to be here, and for Tracy and I to be here from WCPT. I bring you greetings from our board and from our new CEO, Jonathan Kruger, who will be taking up his post on the 1st of August. As Annalie said, IFOMT is the oldest subgroup of WCPT, which is the Global Physiotherapy Organization. And we are immensely proud of our relationship, which is a strong relationship working together to raise the standards of physiotherapy across the world. Conferences like this don't happen without wonderful, wonderful volunteers, committed, passionate physiotherapists who go well beyond the day job to enable us to sit and participate in events like this. Annalie has acknowledged 3 of the presidents of IFOMT who are in the audience, and I would like to take a moment, if you would allow me, to acknowledge 2 great physiotherapists in the world of orthopedic and manual therapy, who this year have been honoured by their national honour system. So Anne Moore and Gwen Jull have both been recognised in the honours systems of Australia and in the United Kingdom. The Australia Day honours list in the case of Gwen, and the Queen's Birthday honours list in the case of Anne. And I'd like you to stand up. I know you're going to be speaking afterwards, but I think it's worth taking a moment to acknowledge these great women. And to recognize that we are in great hands. We are in safe, strong, and visionary hands in all of the volunteers who have come together to make IFOMT what it is, to make your member organizations what they are, and to make WCPT what it is. So good job to everyone here who volunteers in the cause of physiotherapy. I have just 2 short messages building on from that, and it's a persistent message in the presidency since I began that role in 2015, and I will be like a broken record, but I will keep going on it, which is, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, but are you a member of your professional organization, your physiotherapy organization, and within that, your division of orthopedic and manual therapy, or that organization in your country? I hope you are. Yes? Good. So your job, if you're not a member, I'm calling on you to join. And if you are a member, I have 2 jobs for you. Get someone else to join. And join in. Because becoming a volunteer in our organizations is why these events happen. We are stronger when everyone is a member, and we are even stronger when we have a core of volunteers. But whatever you get back, or whatever you give, you will get back tenfold. Great friendships, fantastic fun, and lots of learning beyond the clinical component of what it is that you do. And the other thing that I want to just mention, and it has nothing to do with Brexit, I talk about this all the time anyway, is that we are stronger together. We are a global physiotherapy community, and a global voice is a strong voice. And World Physiotherapy, the World Confederation for Physical Therapy, represents 350,000 physiotherapists. And I would like us to be representing over 1 million physiotherapists. And the only way that happens is if people join their member organizations of WCPT. Sometimes I think as physiotherapists we don't necessarily see the need. We ask what's in it for us. And what's in it for us is the powerful voice that we have when we come together on issues around patient care, in serving the people and the communities who need our services. So we are stronger together, and we must make every effort not to fragment ourselves as a profession. Have a fantastic few days. I regret that I am leaving you tomorrow, but I am going on my holidays, so I'm not giving that up, even though I do love physiotherapy. And there's a reason why I have an elephant, and Tracy in the audience has a rhinoceros, and Ina Diener from South Africa has something else, one of the big 5. And if you'd like to know more about that, please come to the WCPT stand, and we'll tell you all about it. Thank you once again, and have a fabulous conference.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name's Chris McCarthy. I'm the chair of the Musculoskeletal Association of Chartered Physios, the MACP. And I too am delighted to have you here, to welcome you to the UK, and those from the UK to welcome you to Glasgow. It's a real pleasure to have you here. This has been a 9-year journey. Thinking back, Chris and I go back longer than that, but the 2 of us have been involved in this process of getting this conference here for 9 years. We bid to host the conference in 2012. We weren't successful. We went again, and here we are. So 9 years of work. It's certainly ramped up in the last 4 years. And I know when Chris started this, he had a full afro. Great big, luscious, dark, black hair. Look at him now. God bless him. So I'd like to thank the organising committee. I'd like to thank the MACP Executive Committee. I'd like to thank the help we've had from the IFOMT committee for us to be here. But I'd like to thank Chris particularly. Chris is a consultant physio who runs a triage service in the south of England. It's a massively responsible job. And he gives up about a day a week, and has done probably for the last 4 or 5 years, to get this conference here. So it's a phenomenal commitment from that gentleman who's led an excellent team of people. But I'd like us, if we could, to just offer a little bit of thanks for all the hard work you've done, Chris. The MACP has 1,100 members. You may have a member sat fairly close to you. That member may be an independent prescriber. They may be prescribing things. They may be injecting things. They may be undertaking minor surgery. They may be listing people for radiology and listing people for surgery. The MSK services in the UK are run by physiotherapists. GPs have handed over that responsibility to us. So this is the great thing about an international conference like this, is that in coffee and in tea breaks, we'll get the chance to meet you, you'll get the chance to meet us. You can see how we do things, we can see how you do things. That's one of the strengths of these kind of conferences. But the UK is a hotbed of musculoskeletal practice, helped a lot, I think, by having the CPD offered by something like the MACP. It's a fantastic model of CPD. Obviously, I'm a fan. The MACP is one of the founding members of IFOMT. We're thoroughly behind the ethos of IFOMT, and since the Standards Committee has done such a marvellous job, and since we've had international monitoring since 2007, we feel confident now to offer unilateral recognition to other full member organisations. So the MACP will be the first group that offers unilateral recognition to other full members, which means if you're a member in another full member organisation in another country and you wish to join the MACP, we will welcome you in our association. And that's the joys of an international organisation like IFOMT. It really offers our patients an international kite mark of standards, which other organisations cannot offer. And I think we need to, certainly in the UK, we need to make more of that. So I'm delighted to welcome you to this World Conference. It's going to be world-class. It will help you develop expertise in musculoskeletal practice. And I hope you have a fantastic week. Thank you very much.
I'd just like to say thank you to the four other speakers from the introduction. So if you could just say your thanks to them as they exit the stage. Thank you. Thank you. Well, we've met these two already, so Emma's stolen my thunder, so I'm not really sure what I'm going to say now. So I'll make something else up. So we've been introduced to Professors Gwen Jull and Anne Moore by Emma Stokes, and she's touched on their fantastic contributions to the world of physiotherapy. I can't think of anyone better to start the conference. So we've asked Gwen and Anne as a team to do this because they've worked so closely together over the last 325 years, I think they said this morning. They've been trying to get away from each other for years, but we just wouldn't let them, just for this last conference. So we've asked them to open the conference, really to set the scene, do a bit of reflection on where physiotherapy's come from, and at the end of the week to sum up the conference and some ideas for the way forward. Between them, they have incredible CVs. You only have to look at their biogs on your app to see the incredible contributions they've made. They have incredible passion and incredible inspirations. These are the new Incredibles, you know. Over 240 journal publications between them, about 350 keynotes, so this will just be a breeze for them, you know. But it's a real honour for me to introduce them. I've worked very closely with Anne over the last 20 years, really, and more recently met Gwen, but I think they're very similarly minded, and Anne, for me, has been a personal inspiration, and she's been a great facilitator to me, and I know to many others in the room, and similarly Gwen. You know, these are people who inspire people to continue their careers and push the profession forward. And as Emma alluded to, both of them have been awarded national recognition for their contribution, not only to physiotherapy, but to society in general. You know, this is about developing society and leaving a legacy, and these two will certainly do that. The awards they got for their countries, Gwen's was the Officer of the Order of Australia, and Anne's was the Commander of the Order of the British Empire. They were both gutted this morning to find out that they're both the second highest honour that their countries could offer. I'm sure they're still a bit competitive between them, but they're still equally recognised, and I think justly so. It's fantastic contribution, fantastic recognition, and as I say, it's a real honour for me to introduce Anne and Gwen to start this first session of the scientific part of the programme. So first up, I'm going to introduce Gwen Jull, and then we'll have Anne Moore. So please welcome Gwen to the stage.
And apart from all that, we're relatively ordinary people, really. But it certainly has been a fantastic honour and thrill to be recognised, and something you'll never forget. But anyway, as Chris mentioned, we've been asked to set the scene for the conference. And I think this is a nice saying that knowing our history helps us to understand the present and to plan intelligently for the future. So what we've decided to do is to look at our history and set the scene by looking at the developments in our theory and practice. And I'm going to look at Greaves' Modern Manual Therapy, because we've just had that text published. And Anne will look at reviewing some of the IFOMT conferences and give you a local's welcome to Glasgow. So in thinking about Greaves' Modern Manual Therapy, to just introduce Greg Grieve, I'm sure the UK people know him well, but Greg Grieve was one of the first in that cafeteria meeting in St Thomas's Hospital with Stan Paris, Jeff Maitland, Freddie Carlton-Bourne, which really started talking about manipulative therapy and was really the prelude to IFOMT. Greg Grieve was the MACP representative to IFOMT, and he was the first, he co-chaired with Freddie Carlton-Bourne the Educational Standards Committee of IFOMT, and then he was largely responsible for the actual first document of education. So it's not surprising he also had an interest in writing text, and he wrote two by himself, and then this third one of an edited text looking at the international scene of manual therapy. So there have now been 4 editions of modern manual therapy, and so that gives us some 30 years of history that I'd like to briefly talk about. So if we look at the trends across those 30 years, firstly, there's been changes in the title of the book. It started up as Modern Manual Therapy, and it's ended up as Greaves' Modern Musculoskeletal Physiotherapy, and the other big change is it now includes both the spine and the extremity joints. If we look at the origin of the authors in the first edition, they came from a small smattering of countries. But if we look at the origin authors in the 2005 edition, again we see that about double the people, double the countries are represented in the text. And I'm quite sure in the next text that we're going to see a lot of people from South America, Africa, and also Asia, because you can feel the increase in research that is happening in the countries in those regions. So if we just look at the content, early in the scene, we were very much fixated on structure and function, how to assess, how to treat people. And we had very small area of clinical considerations, which was really the embryo to our clinical sciences. Changes occurred, but you can see in the 2005 edition that we were starting to transition to our foundation sciences and our clinical sciences, and importantly, working towards establishing the evidence base for manual therapy. The person who wrote the foreword to modern musculoskeletal physiotherapy, Karam Khan, said that the going from the 2005 to 2015 was not an evolution, that it was really a revolution in the science and practice of manual therapy. And as I go through, we'll illustrate that. There were huge changes in that 2015 edition compared to all other editions. And it probably paralleled the massive increase that there has been in research in physiotherapy. So you can see at the time, and this is clinical trials, but you can see at the time of the first and second editions, there was not a lot of research going on, but you can see this absolutely massive growth that has happened, particularly in this last 10 years. We also see the growth in the higher education of physiotherapists contributing to these texts. So in the first edition, the green is PhDs, the orange is OMT qualifications, and the blue is physiotherapy qualifications. So you can see as we've gone through, that we've got an increasing number of higher degrees. And again, about 80% of the contributors, physiotherapy contributors to the latest edition, had PhDs. It might look as though the OMT education has decreased, but in fact that's just an anomaly of the graph, because in reality what's happened is that an increasing number of people who have done postgraduate work in OMT are now doing PhDs, which is absolutely fantastic. That's what gets you the good science. But looking more closely at the various editions, in 1986, it certainly art prevailed over science. There was a strong focus on the articular system and manipulative therapy, and also a strong focus on anatomy and kinesiology, and we tended to like to describe syndromes. As I mentioned, the clinical considerations was rather a small section and the embryo of our clinical sciences, so it was a really underdeveloped area. In the clinical practice, again, we were very much had an emphasis on the examination of spinal movements and segments, a strong emphasis on manual examination. And in the management area, our emphasis was on manipulative therapy and traction. There were about 5 chapters dealing with traction in 1986. Exercises and things like that were very naive in what was produced. But even by 1994, changes were occurring. There was still an emphasis on functional anatomy, on the articular, nervous and muscle systems. We were less concerned with actually describing syndromes, but we had discussions, and one of the big discussions was on the symptom of dizziness, and it was at that time that there was the first introduction of the clinical protocols for pre-manipulative testing. Our clinical considerations, or in other words, our embryo of clinical sciences, was starting to increase. And then there was a very pivotal chapter, I thought, by the late Max Zussman, who basically said to us, well, what are you doing with manipulation? Start researching into the neurophysiological mechanical effects. And so it was a very good paper to spur us on. In the clinical practice, again, we were starting to mature a bit more. We were looking at our clinical reasoning, looking at principles of examination rather than doing checklists of examination. And in our management, you can see that we were still interested in manipulative therapy, but we're starting to bring in other sorts of treatments. So we're starting to transition from almost a one-modality approach to a multimodality approach. 2005, the art was really being balanced by an increasing science. And you've just got to look down that thing that we were down the list. We were starting to get interested. We didn't lose our interest in anatomy and biomechanics, but we were expanding our interests into motor control, the neurophysiology of pain and pain inflammation. We were interested in looking at mechanisms underlying the pain and dysfunction that our patients were presenting with. And again, looking at vertebral artery, vertebrobasilar insufficiency, but probably balancing this whole area of dizziness and unsteadiness by considering also cervical vertigo. We were interested in clinical stability, and there's a chapter by Peter O'Sullivan, which was basically the embryo or the first edition of his classification method. When we looked at clinical practice, again, this is where a big transition occurred, because we stopped sort of saying, this is the way we'll treat this and this is the way we'll treat that. And we were more interested in what were our neurophysiological effects of manipulative therapy. Max Zussman did spur a lot of research in that decade. What were the mechanical responses to spinal manipulation? So we were more concerned in what was happening rather than doing checklists. Again, another pivotal chapter by Elvey and O'Sullivan that looked at the limitations of a model that was mainly manipulative therapy, and again, trying to put manipulative therapy in the context of a biopsychosocial model. And again, looking at things other than the articular system, we're interested in management of the nervous system, motor control, etc. So we really started to see this transition to musculoskeletal physiotherapy, and again, that is the title of the 2015 edition. So in this edition, you can just think about, this was the background chapters in the 1986 Greaves book. And this is the sort of background chapters that we've got in the 2015 edition. It's some very sophisticated chapters on the neurophysiology of pain and pain modulation, the neurophysiology of movement. We're looking at motor control, we're looking at the peripheral nervous system, we're looking at the holistic views of lifestyle and musculoskeletal health. Also, the increasing sophistication of measurement that we've now got available to us in physiotherapy to be able to look at what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and what effects. The technology has just exploded. And again, there's all these applications of technology to physiotherapy. When we're looking at the clinical sciences, again, you can see that we have this very, very broad church that we now look at within the scope of manual therapy, or better termed, I think, musculoskeletal physiotherapy. There's also a section on clinical practice, and in that section on clinical practice, the authors were asked to discuss issues in the area. So, as I mentioned before, we not only had the spine, but also the extremities were included in this latest edition. So, for example, in the cervical spine chapter, some of the issues that were discussed in that chapter was profiling patients within a biopsychosocial model, the inevitable discussion on cervical manipulation versus mobilisation. In whiplash, we were looking at the role of tissue damage. Is whiplash a culturally dependent condition, or is it an international conspiracy that they all complain of the same sort of symptoms? We then got to the thoracic spine, and some of the issues there was, well, there's two different treatment approaches. In the lumbar spine, we've got 4 different classification methods to lead 4 different treatment methods. In the sacroiliac joint, we've got 3 different treatment approaches to the same sort of region. We then look at the extremity joints, and they discussed acute overuse degenerative conditions, and they too recognised issues in their areas of practice. So some of the issues, as example, that were identified was the uncertainty as to the cause of rotator cuff pathology, the differentiation of a syndesmosis injury or fracture from an ankle ligamentous strain. So they too have issues as we do in the vertebral column. But the other thing, when you read through all the chapters in that text, there's one thing that you look at, one thing that becomes obvious when you start looking at the chapters on the extremity regions. Now, keep in mind that these authors came from different countries around the world, but what you could feel was that in treating shoulder, elbow, wrist and hand, hip, knee, ankle type of thing, there was a certain concordance in the approach across extremity disorders. They operate within a pathoanatomical framework, within a biopsychosocial model, in both the acute and chronic states. They aim to identify structural impairments and tissue incompetence, even though in some areas that's still quite a challenge to do. And there's a common approach in management. And you could feel that approach coming through in most of the conditions described: the education, assurance, helping people with coping skills, self-management, the judicious use of rest, etc., etc. I did a thing, and I just, instead of having extremities, I put the word spine up there. So if we go through the list, concordance in approaches across spinal disorders, well, that's out. Operate within a pathoanatomical framework, within a biopsychosocial model, well, that's out. We can't identify lesions, and so we're happy to play around with ridiculous terms like non-specific back pain or non-specific neck pain. Identify structural impairments, tissue incompetence. Well, we got no agreement there. We're still fighting about whether there's an ongoing peripheral nociceptive source in a lot of our neck and back pain patients. And the treatment approaches are pretty interesting. Extremities. They're happy to put their hands on patients. Spine, there's a fight. You've got one group happy to put their hands on, the other group saying, well, you're evil if you put your hands on. We've all got to keep our hands off these days. Exercise. In the extremities, you can see in all the different areas, there's programs of rehab. There's neuromuscular control, strength, endurance, function-specific training. What happens in the spine? No agreement on exercise strategies, no agreement on exercise dose. We've got judicious use of rest and orthoses, etc. when you have an acute sprain, for example, an acute sprain of the ankle, ACL sprain, etc. What happens in the spine? You get an acute injury, e.g. a whiplash, no rest, stay active. Absolutely a criminal offence to wear a collar. Okay, absolutely, totally different approach. In the extremities, education assurance is part of patient management. In the spine, education assurance, addressing pain behaviours, becomes the sole management. Now, as far as I've been able to gather, humans have one spine, two arms, two legs, and a common brain. However, if I get hip OA, I get a certain approach to treatment. If I get OA of my L5-S1 zygapophyseal joint, which is approximately 4 centimetres away, I have a totally different treatment approach. Why? That's what I want to see answered this conference. We have got to plan intelligently for our future research and practice, and we have got some issues. With the treatment approaches, let's all realise there is no treatment approach alone has the answer for spinal pain disorders. It is ultimately going to be in a multimodal, multidisciplinary management. We've also got to keep remembering that the big picture, spinal disorders are it's a recurrent condition or a persistent pain. When you look at the global burden disease, back pain, neck pain, other musculoskeletal disorders are in the top 10 of 301 conditions. We've got serious work to help decrease this global burden of disease. So I think what our challenges are that we have got to develop effective management strategies for the acute pain episode, but we've also got to concentrate on preventing recurrences, preventing this transition to chronicity to try to decrease this global burden of disease of musculoskeletal disorders. We know that in any sort of disorders, we're going to have biological features, psychological features, social features, and we're going to have a whole lot of interactions of those biological, psychological, and social features. So if we're going to plan intelligently for the future and try to actually prevent recurrences, we've got to aim to somehow return these features within normal limits, and that would be the ideal, to reverse it all. So we need to do a lot of research. What sort of research do we need to do? What do our treatments do? And that's a serious question, because what I think we've got to have is a realm of measures that look at central processes, peripheral processes, look at all the aspects of the biopsychosocial models to see whatever treatment we want to apply, what does it do at each level of that impairment? Now, can treatment return functions to within normal limits? We don't know. We're not using those sort of outcome measures at the moment. What dosage is required? And again, we get fixated on decreasing pain, but always remember, relief of pain does not automatically, for example, return neuromuscular function to normal. Importantly, what can our treatments not do? We've got to recognise what we can't do equally as much as recognising what we do. And then importantly, what are the interaction effects of our treatments? So, we've had 4. The next edition will be due in 2025. So let's hope we have more of the answers. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Gwen. Just before Anne comes on, I'd just like to remind you that you have a device in your hand. I can see loads of them. They keep on popping up, so I know they're out there. And on that, you've got your conference app. So what we'd like you to do is ask if you have any questions for the speakers throughout the conference, you can ask the questions through the app, and they will come through to the conference chair. So if you have a look on your app, there's a thing on there that says ask a question. So if you have a question, you can ask it, and it'll come through to the chair. And the app is very clever. It'll stratify the questions in order of popularity, so we'll ask the questions from there. Great. So over to Anne. Thank you, Anne.
Well, good morning, everybody. And it's lovely to be here. And I'd just like to say a big thank you to Chris and also to Emma Stokes for mentioning Gwen my honours awards. I only found out about mine about 7 weeks ago, so I'm still in a state of shock and it hasn't really sunk in yet. But I'm sure there were people in the room who actually contributed to us gaining those awards by sending in information. We don't know who it is, we're not allowed to know that, and we don't know what you said about us, but I'd like to say a big thank you to anybody in this room who had some sort of role to play in that. And I'm very pleased, I'm very proud for me, but I'm also very proud for my profession, and I'm also very proud for our speciality, and I'm sure Gwen is too. So, I went back and did a little bit of historical oversight of what's happened in the IFOMT conferences. I've always fancied having a career in history, but I sort of failed to do that. So I'm sort of building that up now, and I'm emeritus professor, because you can do what you like now, really. But I wanted to welcome you to Scotland, because Scotland is a very beautiful place, so do make sure that you get out there and see some of the scenery. I'm sure you might have seen Chris in his kilt last night, but if not, I'm sure there'll be another opportunity at the Ceilidh. So do remember to go and do have a look at his sporran, which is very, very beautiful, actually. He's keeping quiet. Do look at the Cantilever Bridge if you're anywhere near Edinburgh, because that's almost like the biomechanics of the lumbar spine. And the Scottish Heather, that's one not to miss. You can't not miss the Scottish Heather, so do have a look at that. And if you get a chance, do have some haggis. I don't know if there's be any at the Ceilidh. Chris is saying yes, so do try some of the haggis. And also, if you've got the opportunity, do try some of the Scotch whisky if you're allowed to drink alcohol. And then there's the Scottish Games, tossing of the caber. I don't know if we'll be able to do any of that in the actual conference facility, but maybe Chris might facilitate a little bit of that outside, in the week. We'll see how he goes. So welcome to Glasgow. This is a wonderful venue, and I hope you really enjoy the whole conference. So I'm going to talk first of all about past conferences, and it was interesting getting this information because it isn't all in a central place, but I must thank the IFOMT office for giving me some information that I needed when I was completely blank. So here you can see the history of the IFOMT conferences to 1992, and you can see they happened in Canada, Spain, USA, New Zealand, Canada again, UK, USA, Norway, Australia, South Africa, Netherlands, Canada, Scotland. In 2020, I believe we're going to Melbourne. So back to Australia. So that's great. Well done. But I wanted just to sort of go and have a little look at what happened at these events, because it'll also give you an idea about how we've grown as an organisation and as specialists in this field in terms of research and developments. So in 1974, which was held in Canada, the Standards Committee was established. And then in 1975 in Spain, there was a congress. There were 40 to 50 attendees and 11 countries present. And there was a series of sessions that were run by committee members with the big names that you will recognise. But there was a real focus at that conference on finalising the construction of the standards. If we move on to 1977, then there were 23 speakers from 4 countries. And you can see the 4 countries listed. And if you look at the speakers' backgrounds, there were some anatomists, some orthopaedists, an osteopath, neurosurgeon, some psychologists, and some physiotherapists. And again, the speakers included some of the well-known names of the time. So we've got Roccabardo, Cowtonborn, Lamb, Eventh, and Stanley Paris, who is in the audience somewhere. I don't know where. Stanley, where are you? I think he's over there. Okay. Hey, there he is. Lovely. Well done. And this particular conference included a number of practical sessions, but a lot of the presentations were keynote addresses which focused on the individual's approaches and methods, and with a strong focus on anatomy, pathology and biomechanics. Then we go to 1980, and there were 10 keynote speakers, again some well-recognised names. Voluntary papers was the terminology used there, and 2 of these, when I looked at the abstracts, appeared to be laboratory-based. Many of the keynotes did practical demonstrations with patients, with each of the speakers leading on different aspects of the body. And Stanley did a wonderful overview of that conference. So if you've got the opportunity to look at that, which I'm sure is on the website, then do have a look at it. It's a really interesting report to read. In '84, we went to Vancouver, 36 speakers now, so you can see the numbers of speakers are increasing. 3 presentations, which were research-based, so only 3. And there was quite a focus on osteopathic impact and muscle energy. And you can see the other areas there, but one of the things that sort of comes to light is EMG and ultrasound at the end, and quite a lot of emphasis on biomechanics. A large focus on the sacroiliac joint and the pelvis, and most of the focus on examination and diagnosis. It was very case-orientated, with some reference to previous research by others, but not massively underpinned by individuals' research, particularly. Then we go to Cambridge. I think that was the first one I ever went to, and that's the first time I saw Gwen, actually. So there were 38 speakers, presentations from 10 countries. There were 10 research-focused papers, but now we saw the instigation of posters. So there were 15 posters there, and the list below the main focus gives you the sort of areas that individuals were covering. But a lot of these were sort of individually based on their own approaches and methods. 92, we were in USA. 73 presentations now from 9 countries. So getting bigger as we go through. Poster sessions were included, there were 6 of these. And the content of the programme you can see in that list. But the focus was on the direction of travel in terms of models and approaches. So people were beginning to think outside the box. And you can see the key presenters down there. And Stanley, of course, was there again, and so was Gwen. So there we are. Then we moved to Norway and Lillehammer. And this was an interesting place, because I can remember Paul Hodges almost falling off a sleigh when he went down the Olympic ski run, which was a little bit worrying. 25 keynote speakers, 13 poster presentations, and 64 free paper presentations, which was massive. So it was a lot bigger than any of the conferences before, and 1 qualitative paper. So this was the start. Then there was quite a focus on the origins of musculoskeletal physiotherapy, osteopathy, chiropractic, and also on the Syriacs approaches. And you can see the speakers there sort of listed by country and numbers. And research foci, really, orthopedic manual therapy, biomechanics again, hands-on assessment methods, not hands-off, and also ultrasound imaging. But there was also this rise of the issue about the need to market manual therapy, and also something about the need to develop firmer standards of manual therapy training. And obviously there was an identified need for more research into exercise therapy, and much more focus on research at this stage, and qualitative research beginning to surface. So hooray, she's saying. 2000, here we are in Perth. 128 presentations, 43 posters, very wide range of topic areas, much more of a research focus, with some emphasis on techniques, but not huge. Less focus on manual therapy as an individual approach, and the key areas you can see listed below. 2004, Cape Town, balancing outcomes. This was about balancing the outcomes in all sorts of areas: assessment, management, evidence, sports injuries, exercise therapy, pain management, work-related disorders. Very, very research focused, and it included a number of breakout sessions to facilitate discussions. 2008, Rotterdam. And I can remember Rotterdam well. There was wine flowing at every element of the day. I think they've still got a backlog, actually. There was quite a lot there. 15 keynote speakers, 28 invited lecturers, 95 oral presentations, 113 poster presentations, 3 workshops. I think this gives you the message that actually research activity